Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the MedTech Impact Podcast, where you get to hear from leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of medical technology. I'm Kyle Cruz.
And I'm Richard Meiklejohn.
And we're your hosts of the show.
So today on the MedTech Impact Podcast, we're delighted to be joined by Billy Prentice, CEO and founder of Signati Medical. Billy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate being here.
Well, Billy, we appreciate you joining us because you have a great story to tell, and we're looking forward to unraveling that story for the listeners. Before we get into it, though, we do like to frame it for the audience. So what is the big problem that Signati Medical is looking to solve?
We're looking to take men's health to another level and really take the burden off women when it comes to birth control.
I'd love to know more. I mean, we've just come off the back of Women's Health Month, and I'm so intrigued by this aspect you're talking about. You know, how specifically are you thinking about improving that?
You know, when you look at what women do today, tubal ligations, it's 3 to 4 times the amount of vasectomies that are performed pre-Roe verdict. All right. Birth control, the IUDs, you know, men need to take this burden on. Okay. They need to show that act of love to their partner to say, you know what, it's my turn to step up now. It's my turn to help in our family planning. This is what's never happened before. Not enough men have done that. After the Roe verdict, we saw a dramatic increase in vasectomies across the US. This has to continue, and we need to do our part for, you know, our family.
Yeah, and when you think about vasectomy as a man, I also think that it's a subject that people don't often talk about, and maybe there's a stigma around in terms of getting the procedure done, particularly when you're at an earlier or younger age, and you know that idea of getting that might seem overly invasive and intrusive, Kyle. And you know, I'm kind of intrigued to learn more about how Signati is thinking about solving this problem.
You know, it's interesting, Richard, because I mean, it's a valid point. You know, you got 3 men here sitting on this podcast, and I'll tell you right now is that 2 of the 3 aren't as exactly informed and aware of the options, but we sure do know, you know, at least we've heard stories about how vasectomies are performed. And yeah, it sounds a little daunting. Now, who are we to say what's daunting? Because women are the real champions, right? I mean, geez, to think at what their bodies go through, right? It's the least we can do as men. So I do think that tees us up nicely, Billy, to kind of learn a little bit more about what Signati is doing. What does that technology or device look like? And, you know, how is it improving the standard of care today?
So look, nothing's changed other than one thing in vasectomies since its creation. They went from scalpel to no scalpel. They're still making an incision into the groin. They're tearing the skin instead of cutting it. Okay. It's a little bit of a play on words. We are not reinventing the wheel. This procedure is easy. It's simple. It's just cumbersome. All right. We're going to make that simpler. All right. There's a device called ligature today. They do exactly what we do. The difference in us and them, they're $10,000 to $15,000 per patient done robotically, where we're $200. Okay, this is a disposable device that's simpler and easier to use. You know, it's one of those things where if you take something and show men they can do their part and how easy it is, and they're not sitting with peas and swollen groins and everything else, it's a great thing. And that's where we're going to do. We're going to take that and make it easier and show men they can step up.
You know, Billy, so you mentioned the cutting, you know, of the skin and that invasive type of procedure. How does your technology work as opposed to being, you know, invasive?
Well, that's a great question. What we're doing is we're currently in our clinical trials. We're 75% of the way through. We expect to finish our first phase in June. What we've done, we have made a small incision in the groin and took the vas deferens out like they do today, so we could see the efficacy of the seal. We are sealing this vessel. We're not cauterizing it. We're not stitching it. We're not clipping it. There's some men that they live with a titanium clip in their groin for their lifetime. You can feel that. Okay. We're making it so that all goes away. Our goal, again, is to make this where a man can go back to work right away. And you know, when one gentleman has this procedure done and he says, hey, I got the Signati procedure, the sealed vasectomy procedure done yesterday, and I played 18 holes of golf today. That's what we want to hear. Men need that encouragement, right? Because we're wimps, right? We're wimps. We want to sit and, you know, get our vasectomy done during March Madness so we can hit the button and change the channel. All right. That's the whole thing. We're going to remove all of what's happening today and just make it faster, better, and easier.
That's awesome. And you're so right. We are wimps. And anything that we can do to make it easier and less painful, right? That's key. So it does sound like your sealing procedure would be, though, non-invasive, which is quite intriguing, and no need for any kind of titanium clip.
Correct. And that's the thing. After we're done with this patient, we will get a submit to FDA for approval. We will then continue to go right through the skin. So there'll be a small inclusion that'll just clear up in a week or two. And
yeah. And is this reversible?
I can't make that claim.
Okay.
Because we haven't done it. What our physicians have said, they don't see any complications whatsoever. Because number one, some of these are covered by insurance. Some of them are not, depending on your insurance company. The reversals are not. I mean, it's taken like bucatini pasta and stitching in two pieces together. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. So
yeah,
that's a bigger procedure done.
Okay. Understood.
Well, this sounds like a really clean and accessible way to take it. And the golf analogy, it sounds like you're going to get men swinging in the right direction and
Literally,
you know, doing the right thing. And so I'm wondering about the care professionals, you know, what's the feedback been like from them? Because this, again, sounds like a really simple procedure.
I tell you, it is simple. It's almost too simple. So there are those doubters out there. If you look back at laparoscopic surgery when it first came out, right? They were like, this is never going to work. Who doesn't use it now to remove a gallbladder or something like that? For us, any doctor that's come to us with those same challenges, once they understand the procedure, it's pretty much a no-brainer. In this country, there's probably about maybe 4% of non-urologists that perform vasectomies. They do it very well. They do a great job. They're not surgeons. The surgeon, the urologist, they understand it in a second. One of our investors had called me because his father invested in us, said, can you explain this to me? I go, sure. He goes, I have one question. Is this ligature in your version? I go, yes. He goes, I'll send you a check. I go, that was fast. What do you do? He goes, I'm a transplant surgeon. I understand the sealing of vessels, whether I'm removing an organ to put another one in or removing the organ to go to someone else. I understand it. I'll write you a check. And that's what happened. That was our entire conversation.
Amazing. And so this process, again, when you're getting it done, it's in an outpatient clinic, you know, it's done under general
Right in the
local
doctor's
anesthetic.
office.
Doctor's office. Wow.
Just go in, you're going to have, you know, there's minimal prep. They'll wipe you down and go. I've sat in many procedures. Our first clinical patient, I was there. He never moved. He just got it done, spoke to us the whole time, and walked out of the office a few minutes later. And, you know, we use bipolar energy, so the energy is going both ways. There's no need to be grounded when they have the surgery or anything like that, because when they cauterize, it's a monopolar, so the energy is going one way. You are on a grounding mat and everything else. You don't have to do that this way.
Well, it's interesting about the reversals because it's actually a tiny percentage of men who actually ever get a reversal. I think it's like 5-6%. So, you know, this seems like a really clean way to go.
You know, basically the reversal is, God forbid someone ever loses a child. You know, it's just heartbreaking. They want to do everything they can to, you know, just recover some way, somehow. The also thing is a lot of older men marrying younger women. They had this done. Part of the thing is, you got to go get this reversed. I want a child. So it's a lot. But, you know, we don't see that being a challenge for us.
And Kyle, it sounds like they're on a pretty good track in terms of taking this to market, and clearly it's, not far away from being there.
Exactly. I mean, Billy, some of the stories that you're telling us, it sounds like the surgeons that do, or the urologists that do get introduced to this, it seems like, there's this immediate kind of moment where they're like, wow, okay, this is effective. It sounds like, and it seems like it's going to be a faster procedure too, safer, less expensive, right? So tell us a little bit more about that go-to-market strategy and how Signati intends to really get this in the hands of more surgeons today, and to really help grow the company.
I mean, what we're going to plan to do is we will launch this product, and hopefully in the next 6 months, we will be completed our clinical trials for the first phase by the end of June. We need to wait for semen analysis results to come back. Okay. And that takes a little time. It could take up to 120 days. Realistically, we're hoping to have it within 90. Once we do that, we will submit for full FDA approval to the FDA. And we're going to launch the next day we get approved. We will have doctors use this the next day. Our doctors on our team, we have a tremendous clinical advisory board. Dr. Henry leads the pack. These doctors have all written us checks. We've never paid them $1, nothing. They've believed in the technology. We have other doctors that are urologists writing us checks. It's a funny story. We had our first presentation we did at a urology convention. We had 2 doctors that were part of the moderators rather, and they were great. They helped, they talked to us, but 2.5 years later, they wrote us checks because they said, now we see the need. Because after the Roe verdict, with all these states putting the bans on abortion timeframes, Florida's after 6 weeks, they see there's a need for it. You have backups now in vasectomies. If you go to Tennessee, I know of a doctor that's backed up 4 months. You call his office, they'll do a consultation for you next week. I'll see you in 4 months. That's a long time to wait. It's hard enough to get men to go to the doctor one time. Now you're going to make us wait 4 months? Come on. The odds, I would say the odds are 20% of guys won't show up. That's the hard.
Yeah. And this is what type of FDA approval?
What do you mean? Oh, this will be a de novo 510. So 510K de novo. We do show clinical on this because with the straight 510K, there's less clinical needed. We have histological proof our device works. I mean, it's great.
And what about like from a reimbursement standpoint? How will that work?
This procedure in general, not all insurance companies cover vasectomies today. The ones that do will still cover our procedure. All right. You'll use the same code. I think it's 55250 is the code. All right. The CPT code. It's the same code. We're just adding to it. This is going to cost each office a little more money. All right. But it's going to save them time and effort. And men are going to ask for this procedure. That's the whole key. Sealed vasectomy procedure. They're going to come in and ask, I want the Signati device.
And you were telling a pretty interesting story before we got on the podcast here. You were telling us about the folks in Dundee, Scotland. And I think that would be really interesting for the audience to hear that.
So we all know now what's going on in the US with abortions throughout the country and birth control. Dundee, Scotland, there was an ad in the paper that said 1,000 men waiting for vasectomies, 0 doctors to perform. This is in another country because all over they're saying, well, if this can happen in the US, it could happen here too. So men are looking at that, and it's women too. Women go through the same thing here as they do in Britain, as they do in France, and all over the world. They're looking and saying, this is your turn now. And they're right. They are right. We don't, as men, we don't take that on because for some reason we think if we get a vasectomy, it's not going to work again, and that's the whole key.
And hopefully, your device and technology will maybe even encourage more surgeons, right, today, and more urologists today to perform these procedures, right? To make
Oh,
that access and standard of care, it just that much better.
so here's the thing. In all these medical companies, they have different divisions that specialize in different sales. And certain urologists, probably 8 to 9% in the country, do penile implants. Okay. Every urologist, before they leave medical school, are trained on how to do a vasectomy, but they don't. We happen to know one urologist in Florida that sends his patients that come in for a vasectomy to Dr. Stein. Doug Stein has probably performed more vasectomies than anybody else in the world. He is on our clinical advisory board. And I asked him, why would you send your patient to him? He says, number one, I won't lose that patient down the road as a urology patient because he does nothing but vasectomies. Number two, he is a urologist that does vasectomies. If there was ever a complication, he can handle it. Number three, he did my vasectomy, he told me. I go, you're kidding me. He goes, yes. I go, your partner didn't do it. He goes, no, I went to Doug. Doug performed my vasectomy, and now I send my patients to him. He did say when Signati's device comes out, that will change. Knowing the technology and understanding the technology, I will then take that on again. So that was a great thing from him. I was blown away by that.
Yeah, I can understand why. And it sounds like you're addressing more than just this problem of improving patient experience, but clearly just making this process simpler. And it's so interesting you touched on there that medical students are getting trained on this. When you think about, how you take this product to market, clearly this is an opportunity to train students in a different way to make this more accessible. Is that something you're already thinking about?
We are. I mean, now if a lot of products go on the market, they have salespeople, regardless which companies, go sell these people the device. Ours is going to be more of a training thing. So for me, we don't need to sell the product. People are going to ask for our product. When they understand it, be it men or women, they're going to say, here you go. Here's your flyer for vasectomy. This is the Signati sealed vasectomy. They're not going to do what gets done today. These doctors are just going to be trained in this. I guess what our goal would probably be is when we do launch, we will have a bunch of doctors come meet with us on a Friday night. We'll get to know them. They'll train on Saturday. When they fly back home to wherever they're going or drive, their device is going to be waiting for them Monday morning there. They're disposable devices. And they're going to be in there, get the procedure done, and they're going to go back to work. I'm not saying that they can go back to work 15 minutes later, because depending on what they do, they might want to take their time, but everybody should be able to go back to work the next day.
So a really seamless process all around. And you touched on a little bit about, wanting to be on the market in the very near future. If you look sort of ahead in that timeline, I'm kind of intrigued because this is not just something that can work in the US market, but clearly has an opportunity much bigger. If you think about the milestones in the next, say, 6 to 18 months, what is that plan? Where are you taking this first? And where do you see this going beyond that first port of call?
Well, that's great. What we did is we focused on the US. Number one, for money. We wanted to make sure we did it right and conserved what we were doing. We will apply for our CE mark in Europe right away. We will venture out to other countries that don't have the same type of regulation. So you take Mexico, we will go there. I mean, they have the Mexican FDA. They kind of piggyback ours. There's some paperwork that has to be done and something we'll have to do, but they make it a little simpler because of the connection with the US. The CE mark, when I look at that ad saying there's 1,000 men for vasectomy, I just hold up my device and say, I have your answer. And that's really what it's going to be. So we will not stop. We will go everywhere, and this will be the household name.
Yeah, and you've clearly got a personal experience from this, Billy, and kind of intrigued to learn more about what got you into this, and how you built a team around this whole mission.
So, my background is Wall Street, but I was a trader. I wasn't a finance guy. I didn't deal with customers ever. I was shown this device, which I've been shown probably 100 different things to get involved in. I fell in love with this because I realized that this was something. when nothing else has changed and now I can make that change. I was brought in with a bunch of guys that had more medical experience than I did. We have myself and Drew Blum on our board were the business guys. We understood what it needs to run a business. But when you look at a guy like Tony Malone, who's our chairman, medical his entire life, divisions of Covidian and Tyco Health, he showed me the vision that I needed to see to say yes. They brought that to the forefront. Now I'm a medical guy. I can't imagine myself not being one. After 5.5 years engulfed in this, we are probably under the average of what it takes to get to where we are. We're about 11 million under budget. We are probably roughly 2 years ahead of schedule when you look at every other device that comes to market. You know, everybody worries about money. Do we have enough money to get there? Are we going to run out of money? The answer for us is no. We've actually turned down millions of dollars in investments with a real valuation, not a big haircut where somebody's saying, you know, we want you to cut the price in half or we'll give you $1 million. It was less than 5% off our actual valuation. They said, look, we'll give you $3 million. We said, you can keep your money. We don't need it. We made sure we didn't change the environment and our mission to move forward. We did not deviate either. We have a few other patents and other ideas we have for our device, but we stayed focused on one mission, and that was to get this to market. And we have not changed.
Wow, it's not something you hear every day in terms of turning down money and just that really honed in focus about what your mission is and knowing who the right investors to take on are. And I think clearly, you know, your investment experience pays dividends, if you pardon the pun. And
Yeah.
I think that, you know, that's a great lesson that can be learned, Kyle. And I think, you know, it sounds like Billy's learned a lot on the short timeline, turning from transferring shares to doing this medical approach.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just hearing your story, Billy, it's just inspiring. It's fascinating. There's so many feelings, and I think there might be some envious feelings too from a lot of other early stage companies that, you know, could be listening along, because we know how challenging it's been to raise money in the past, you know, couple years here in med tech, right? So but it's just great to hear all the success that you're experiencing. And yeah, to Richard's point, I mean, I'm sure there's some good reflections on your part, and you know, I'm sure the audience would be really curious to kind of hear a little bit more about your experiences and maybe hone in on, you know, maybe 1, 2 couple tips here. If you're, you know, another medical device company, if you're looking to bring an innovative technology to market, you know, with your experience, what advice do you have for them?
You have to have the ability to say no. You have to look for those partners that are really going to enhance you rather than just try to take from you. Look, Global and Connect has been a great partner for us. They have been there every step of the way for us to advise us in other spots that they don't cover. Picking the right partner and making sure we spend our money wisely, that's the big key. And that's where it is. Too many people want to say yes and just take money, and that may be bad money because they're going to want you to go in a different direction on their thoughts. They lose the mission you have and your team has. And, you know, our chairman, Tony, always says, focus forward. Okay. We've had mishaps. We've had things that we said, that was a mistake, but it's being able to stop and refocus and regroup and make the direction change. Too many people can't go that. They go down an alley when they know it's wrong. They can't stop because they're afraid of being wrong. You can't be afraid. You have to focus. And that's the whole key.
That's such great advice. I mean, I think people think about this almost opportunity cost and they're afraid to change direction because they've committed so much down one pathway. But actually, you know, to your point, just saying no and changing direction at the right time and making those key decisions is so important. And you keep on mentioning the mission, and I'm so inspired by this, you know, story you kick things off about how we as men can step up and do our part in terms of the whole approach to, you know, getting this process done. I wondered, what's that bigger vision for you? You know, where do you want to take this? You know, do you see this being in the market everywhere in 5 years' time? You know, what's that kind of longer term goal?
Listen, I hope to have 100% of the marketplace in 5 years. We know that coming off out of the gate, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge just to get the doctors to change their mindset and everything they've done from medical school. They've learned how to do this one way. They don't know another way. When they have that vision where they see that light goes off at the aha moment, that's what's going to change. And, you know, I don't know if you guys remember, but Katie Couric made a comment, and she did a colonoscopy live on TV for everybody to see. It was not a big deal to go for a colonoscopy. So I've already made a commitment to my team and everyone that's talked to us, every one of our investors. When we are approved, I will be the first patient live on TV. Some way, somehow, somebody's going to put me up. And if not, it might be on your podcast where they got me on a table there. All right.
Let's go, Billy.
There we
We're
go.
making it happen. That's how we get more viewers, baby. Come on.
Exactly. But I will do that. And I will prove that this is the way of the future.
That's awesome, Billy. Well, gosh, again, you're very inspiring, you know, to hear your story, to learn about Signati Medical. Obviously, you've got an exciting future ahead. You're going to be building out a team. You're going to be looking for, you know, more partners and customers. So, you know, how do people get in touch with you or the company?
You know, you can email us directly at info@Signati.med. Go to our website, look at our video, all right, under the procedure. Realize that it is that simple to do. And that's really the key. I mean, men, women, they should all look at it and realize that we're on this mission for men to step up.
That's it, Billy. You said it right. And, you know, I would recommend people go and check that video at signatimed.com. And as Kyle said, this has been truly inspirational. Just can't thank you enough for joining us today.
Guys, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, another huge thank you to Billy Prentice, founder, CEO, and president of Signati Medical. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of the MedTech Impact Podcast. I'm Kyle Cruz.
And I'm Richard Meiklejohn. Until next time, keep innovating.